Hello, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, I title this message, When the Creative Realizes His or Her Power. When the creative realizes his or her power. Some of you all have relatives, friends, and even strangers who you admire, who don't realize just how powerful their writings, their films, their music, and so much more is until we start to think deeply, the general public, until we start to say what you were conveying when you created A, B, and C, and they say, well, that's not what my intention was. However, the great I am has a way of using a creative's work to convey to you what message he wants to provide you, a message that you may have been awaiting during your prayer time, or you were looking for an answer when you talk to someone, but yet they couldn't give that answer to you. But somehow God has a way of using a creative's writing, film, music, and it goes on, in order to speak a real truth, a truth that even the creative didn't know that he or she was being used in a great and mighty way. One particular person that comes to mind in our modern day times is Jordan Peele. And for some of you all who have looked at some of his work, I know I have, over the years, much of his work was silly. It was entertaining. He was on shows that his job was to make you laugh, at least on the surface. But as time went on, I noticed that this gentleman in his work was showing us some things that whether he knew or didn't know, there were some messages that we could hold on to, that we could relate. In this most recent movie, at the time of this recording, Nope, this movie is filled with all sorts of symbolism, all sorts of messages that go beyond just, it's entertainment, it's just a movie, don't read into it. There are some things that are prophetic as well in that movie. And I will tell you that one of my takeaways, which was right there in the open, was to mind what you put on the cloud. To also be more observant when it comes to the things that are above your head. And don't be so quick to sit up there and just dismiss individuals who speak to you about a number of things that are happening in the skies, whether manufactured or supernatural. Our God works in mysterious ways, and we also know sinful men and women have a way of coming up with trickery to get some people to do whatever it is that he or she or the group wants them to do. One of the things that, and there are spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, watch the movie, then come back to this audio message. But one of the things that I noticed with the characters, first and foremost, is that you've got two very strong personalities. One that's not so vocal, and that, of course, is the male character, and one who is very vocal, which is the female character. And what we know in the African American community is that sometimes there are those issues that arise, whether in mainstream media or elsewhere, that will call you to silence, and other issues that will beckon you to speak up about. There are also all sorts of systems and products and things that elitists have come up with over the years that at times were beneficial, but other times systematically broke individuals down. When you have someone who has a strong personality, who's willing to speak up and blow the lid on some things, a person who's willing to tell everybody something that maybe others can't speak to or be so bold because of their affiliations, rest assured someone's going to get free, or groups are going to get free. I got to put some of you all on notice, though, that it isn't coincidental or happenstance when you can't seem to get a break, when it seems like a group or an individual is always 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead of you. There are so many systems, so many devices, so many applications that are out here that glean your information. There are even family members and friends as I speak who have access to things on phones, things on computers, all sorts of things that they want to uncover or eavesdrop or monitor. So some of these conversations people have, and you say to yourself, it's like this person knows everything about me. Or how is it that she knew? I mean, since when is she a psychic? Or how is it that chances are somebody has figured out a way to look up things, to spy on you. And so what comes to mind is in that particular movie, you've got the cameras and so forth that are set up to monitor, to surveillance the skies for what appeared to be a UFO apparatus, which later on ended up evolving into something that looked harmless, looked like a big old giant balloon, but then upon closer inspection, what appears to be no big deal ends up being a big deal. So what came to mind early on was that the powers that be guise themselves in innocence like a fluffy white cloud. But then behind the scenes in that movie, we see that everything isn't what it appears to be, and before long, all sorts of things are going haywire. All sorts of people are being impacted as a result of what appeared to be harmless until it wasn't. The cloud where our data appears to be harmless, appears to be okay. Some of you all over the years started off saying, I'm not putting my information here or there or anywhere. And then when people told you, it's okay, it's all right, well, next thing you know, you had your Facebook profile. Next thing you know, you're using the cloud. Next thing you know, you got your TikTok video. Next thing you know, you're giving your information, your soul, and everything else over to the devil. And when the devil gets a hold of information, when the devil gets a hold of anything that he believes is going to win you over to him, or torment you, or destroy you, or promote you for a time until he discards you. just know that God allows some things to take place. I know some of you all weren't expecting that. Wait a minute, you mean to tell me that our Heavenly Father, who we love, who we adore, who we pray to, He lets some things happen? It's interesting. Romans 8:28, it was amplified in my life over the years in so many different ways. All things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose. So what the devil meant for evil, God works it out for our good. You see. So there were evil intentions behind some of these inventions, and then someone comes along and says, well, let's not do that. Let's use it for good reasons. Let's use this tool in such a way that is going to help and not hurt. But there's always those individuals who are sinister, who take ideas, who take inventions, who look beyond the good. And they go, well, we could do a bit more with this. And so the next thing you know, what was a computer that's just sitting there, for instance, that someone is using, and nobody thinks about putting any type of application on it to spy on individuals. Now, someone gets an idea that maybe I should put something on that computer, and maybe I should pay closer attention to what's happening. We got individuals who they were actually conveyed in the movie. The toxic individuals, the individuals who they like to exploit situations, make a bit of money. Next thing you know, all sorts of evil comes out of a situation. But it was harmless. It was okay. Until it wasn't. You got individuals, more specifically, since the two characters are African American, you got individuals that we've said in the Bible that have done all sorts of despicable things, all sorts of wickedness. And we went through many of the types of things that people have done that God says, listen, this person is not going to inherit the kingdom of God. When I saw the father in the beginning part of the movie, seated on that horse, looking back, I realized that he was seated on a horse that could be referenced as being sickly, the pale white horse, when we think of scripture. And then his son riding on a black horse. And then, of course, we think of death from the scriptures. And then, of course, the bloodshed, the red, and coming out of the sky and raining on the house. All sorts of things, like I said, symbolism to ponder as it relates to modern day times. And also cautionary warnings to let you know that you need to be careful what you are saving to the cloud. You also need to be concerned about what you are supporting, who you are supporting, and the types of behaviors, lifestyle that you are encouraging. That was an older man on a horse, and his head goes down, and he's sick. And what was interesting was that what fell from the sky was harmful. Killed him, took him out, injured the horse though. The key, and this is a double meaning, the key that ended up on the horse's behind or off to the side of it, with the black man riding on sickness, come on, an older black man at that. Can I tell you that you can do some things intimately, physically, spiritually, that can sicken you. Next thing you know, you're taken out of here, off this planet prematurely. What is in darkness for so many individuals? Their dark secrets, their dark behavior, the types of things that they have done over the years that created so much harm to their body comes out in the light as they age. Wow, he's walking funny. Wow, he's always talking about how his back hurts. Wow, he got all sorts of issues going on with him. Wonder how he got to that place. And some people know how some individuals got to that place. Interesting, the son witnesses his father with his head dropped before he falls off the horse and he dies. We see him, before that happens, appearing to be strong, right? We see him with the cowboy hat on his head, right? We think of cowboys as strong. And then we see that man go down. And when you look at how many times have we seen over the course of our years black men go down, it's disturbing. It ruffles your spirit a bit, right? It makes you think all sorts of things. That what are they going to do next? Or what have they already done? The key to why things happen. Many of the questions that people have always start with a why. Why is the black man sick? Why is the black man doing some sick things? Why does the black man have a one-eye covering? Why does he prematurely pass away? What is it that he does that creates sickness? Why is he attacked? Or why is he going through like this? You see, it's interesting how we ask those questions of our nephews, of our uncles, of our cousins, of our fathers and our grandfathers. And some of them do nothing but stand there or sit there. Some of them, all they do is complain. He asked, where was his daughter? Apparently she had a history of not being available when you need her. She always got something that she's working on. She got multiple tasks. Her priority at the time was not the family business. Some of you all, you know how it goes. Somebody says that this is the family celebration, family business, the family funeral, the family anything, and they tend not to be available. They tend to have so many irons in the fire all at once that family is not a priority. Sometimes these sorts of things are happening because you never know when you're going to get terminated. You never know when they're going to take their money from you. And such was the case, to be expected, when the brother and the sister attended a shoot. It was a video shoot. They were horse trainers, and the horse got out of hand. And of course, there was no hesitation to get rid of them after years of working with the family. But hey, your father's gone. I don't really like the junior. It's not like his daddy. Goodbye. Some of you all, you know how this goes. You know how it goes because you've been in that situation. And all those people that was on that video shoot, many of them were Caucasian. This man had to go around and sell his father's horses to pay for things. There were more signs in that movie. Not only was the son at one point in the movie riding on a black horse, and of course the history of the first black man riding on a horse in early film, that was great. Haywood, that was the family's last name, Haywood, and they took pride in the fact that they had a relative who had been the first in film. Now, what was interesting was that when he was on the black horse on Wild Air, he had an orange hoodie. And that was the same color of an inmate jumpsuit. I also thought of how there are police officers who, in certain areas at special events, they will ride on a horse. They're enforcing the law. I thought of the fact that he had his head down. He figured out that you don't look up and make eye contact with the being. And it's interesting because isn't that what many of our people have been told over the years? Don't make eye contact with the white man, with the white police officer. Some of those relatives are still above ground. They were old school, grew up in Jim Crow. Keep your head down. Don't appear to be a threat. Comply, comply. This is where things, to me, rub me a little the wrong way when movies are used to convey messages, the kind of messages that you've heard over and over again, but yet we got to create this movie to let these people know some things, or there's certain parts in this movie we need to tweak, we need to fix so that it sends a message. You care about your people, right? All right, so this is what you need to do. Let them know they need to comply. Let them know that they don't look in the face of an officer. You're just going to stir up the pot. You're just going to create a storm, if you will. Chaos, confusion. You want your life destroyed? You want everything taken away? that storm, that being, it was sucking people right off the planet. And whatever it didn't like, it purged out. In terms of things, that is. Wanted the human beings. The ones who would dare challenge. The ones who would want to exploit and disturb the atmosphere. When we think of supernatural events, though, a lot of supernatural events tended to occur out in rural areas in terms of the other creations, the other beings. Interesting, because a lot of times that soil in those rural areas is not as busy. It's not disturbed as much as the city land is. There's more opportunities to see a being or a UFO or anything like that, where there's not a lot of hustle and bustle. And so out to the rural lands you go to see something strange. But I will tell you, from a spiritual perspective, a lot of the unknown is going to make itself known in the future. I may not be alive when all this goes down, but it's going to, these sorts of things, these strange events are going to occur in such a way where there will be no disputing. There will be no, oh, that's somebody who doctored up a video. There'll be so many witnesses. In some cases, there were plenty of witnesses, but then you still got a lot of folks who will say, oh, I don't know if that's true. And they'll mess around and they'll do some things. And in the movie, that briefly came up in terms of, we need to make sure that we get this on film. Is this going to be an Oprah? Is this going to be something that there's no disputing? There's no making it up. There's no somebody mess with the film. And there's always those along the way who make sacrifices. You get the best of the best to do something, and they capture it, and they make a wave. And certain individuals don't want the best of the best to be making any waves. That's why the devil wants his finest kept close to him, because then, of course, you'll expose. You'll end up blowing things up. You'll end up destroying our system. So the individual who the sister had called upon to film, to get the money shots, right? To get the impossible shot in the movie. I told you that there would be spoilers. Oh, he does a thing or two. Oh, he definitely does. And sometimes people do some things at the risk of losing everything, including their lives. I know for some of you all that it's tough living your life right now. You wish that you could just be a person who sits back and just watches a movie, figures some things out, goes back to the drawing table. Let's get it done. Let's make it happen. But it doesn't come so easy, does it, for the creative? The creative who holds power, the creative who God has gifted, the creative who wants the impossible made possible, we do know, going back to the old adage, too much is given, much is required. This is why for some of you all, you can't quite get to where you want to go with your talent, with your skills, or you're not making as much money as you would like. Because God says, I know what you're going to do. I know the future. That when you get your gifts and all the money and all the opportunity and the favor and everything to go along with it, I know what you're going to do. And it's not going to be for good. It's not going to alert individuals to what is happening, to what they need to do in order to protect themselves. You see, when I look at the movie, when it comes to the higher good, I think of, well, the brother was trying to let some folks know to be mindful of what they're saying and what they're doing out there, because there are entities and systems and so forth in place to destroy you. I feel like the next George Floyd situation is going to be a black woman. I believe that as we learn more in the coming days, weeks, and months about a variety of things, when it comes to finances, when it comes to health, when it comes to the unexplainable, beyond the skies, and all of these things that some of our scientists who are not a part of fraternal groups and organizations and gotta give oaths and all this other stuff will uncover. And then, of course, here comes the lid. We don't want that out. We don't want you to speak about this. We don't want you to tell people to guard their information, to guard their data, to keep prying eyes from it, to go back to the old school where they don't need to know everything about you, to start shutting down some of this social media business and just get somebody's phone number, get somebody's, address. Have conversations where not everything is said over the internet, over the phone. Go back to doing some things in person, and don't have a phone in your hand when you're talking to people. Put that phone up, shut it down, put it in another room. Keep your information that is very valuable to you off the cloud, and just put the junk stuff. Of course, the powers that be don't want the junk stuff. Kick it back right out. Oh well. They don't need to know where you went, who you know, who you last contacted, what you bought most recently. But some individuals, they continue to do this sort of thing, and they're destroying themselves. Slowly but surely. You make the wrong move, you try to do something you got no business doing, they already got you. You see? I remember years ago, my husband said, what is it, or who is it, that Trump knows? Or what does he have on people? The reason why he can continue to get away with what he gets away with. Nobody touches him. He ain't got no muzzle on his mouth for the most part. He just keeps saying this and doing that. And When you see a number of things going on in media, the kind of things that make you scratch your head, the kind of things that shock you, the kind of things that beckon you to do something, you should be asking questions. You shouldn't just go. You should not go along with the program. You shouldn't be the individual that just sits back and you just say, it's all entertainment. Nobody's trying to convey anything. And I hate when you guys do that. Instead, you should be saying, well, I noticed some things too. I noticed that this was said and that was said. I noticed that the colors that they used. I noticed that when this one was walking or when this one was, whatever the action is. And then you take heed. You write yourself a note. You keep some things in mind. So that way when the issues hit the fan, when new topics show up, when new inventions show up, you're not going to be the one that's so quick to go, oh yeah, this is going to make my life better. Oh, this is going to be great. Oh no, this is just another way of tracking you down. This is just more information to find out this, that, and the other. If you're not doing anything bad, right? Oh, it's okay. I remember hearing that. I mean, if you don't have anything to be worried about, then sure, you should use the applications. It's the criminals. They should be concerned. Well, everybody should be concerned. You see. The creative has the power to do things like build people up, but also break them down. The creative has the power to convey a truthful message, but also convey a lie. The creative has the power to bring about messages that heal, but also messages that steal and kill, just like the father of lies. The creative can bring the truth, but he or she can bring the lie. What goes up does come down. Some individuals that were in the movie, I noticed that they have their share of lines, but there was a lot of action, a lot of movement, especially toward the end. And you have to put the pieces of the puzzle together to get the end result. Prophetically, I can tell you that the enemy wants nothing more than to destroy those who are just good for nothing. Oh, you can't seem to do this, that, and the other for society? You're good for nothing. You're non-essential. Coming back around to that. Systematically taking people out of here that can't seem to work with teams, can't seem to build up society, but rather they and their children are tearing it down. There was emphasis placed on the monkey. I remember in my prayer time, I talked about a particular ethnicity and I said, Lord Jesus, help me understand what is the deal with the monkey. And some of you all, you remember back in the day, because you were around, you're old enough to remember when there were all sorts of caricatures depicting black people as monkeys. Wild, crazy, set it off on the set, and they tear everything up. They cussing, they destroying, they're killing or threatening to kill. And we saw all sorts of media that showed us that. I was in my youth, night after night, the black man was on the news. He had killed this one, he had killed that one. But I'm like, there's white people too that kill. It wasn't until I moved into other states that I was able to say, oh wow, yes, finally, night after night, we get to see white people doing bad things. Not that I like that sort of thing, but the fact of the matter was that, I mean, come on, give equal exposure to all individuals for their heinous crimes. The monkey in that movie goes off. And we never had another monkey since then. Or we don't use a monkey. in future productions. And that was what one of the characters said. Who was Asian? And then we started thinking, myself and one of my relatives started thinking about how there was the agenda to stop the abuse of the Asian individuals when the sickness has showed up. And here, the Asian gentleman was being used to get some money from the public, to put on an act, to do what he was told to do from the time he was a child. Because after a while, some of these individuals in the entertainment industry don't need handlers, because they have been brainwashed more than enough. They know what they're supposed to do. And they execute what they have been told quite well. The creative, very powerful. Some of you all, you have come across your share of creatives in the church. You have come across your share of creatives at the workplace. You have come across all sorts of creatives. Doesn't matter the industry. What does matter is, what does God say about the creative in your circle? What does God say about you who may be the creative? How are you supposed to convey messages, prophetic messages, political messages, sexual messages? Because people do talk about that sort of thing, right? Financial messages, parenting, marriage, family messages. How? In such a way that's going to bring light to the issues, in a way that people can say, oh, this information is useful, rather than, what is this? I don't get it. Because of course you know that with many movies where there are lots of symbolism, lots of messages in your face, behind the scenes, and some messages that, once again, the creative didn't even know he or she put out there, but it's out there. Because sometimes there are those things that are unseen that work within a creative, that bring about all sorts of things. That's why you got to be careful who you serve. Choose ye this day whom you will serve. Because if you're serving Satan, Satan gonna have his messages out there right along with, if you claim you're a child of God, some messages that appear to be okay and all right too. And then the main message ends up being on a back burner, or the key points that you need to take away from the movie, or the video, or the book, or the writing. They get buried because Satan has a way of burying the truth. He don't want you set free. We got people in this world that will service you. I thought about, in the movie, the gentleman working at Fry's. He needed somebody to talk to. He's sitting up here waiting on customers, and he has something to say. He needed to get something off his chest. A lot of time in the customer service world, the customer service rep wants somebody to listen, because they've been listening to all of us all day, every day. And now they're having a bad day. And no, I don't have it in my heart right now to put on a happy face. The man later shares that he was going through a breakup. That challenges some people to think beyond yourself and what a customer service rep needs to do for you, or sales rep. They're people too. They have emotions. They go through some things. The man was a nervous wreck most of the movie. A bit emotional. But he was also smart. And he knew how to do some things with that surveillance equipment in order to get the job done. I also thought of the pranksters, those children who were creepy. And I thought about how they were hiding in the shadows and watching. And it's interesting that sometimes, once again, what you think isn't necessarily what is. What you believe isn't necessarily correct, accurate. And those were children that he saw. But his mind said, no, that's a threat. No, that's a problem. And he ended up knocking one of them kids out, too. The pranking that goes on. So many individuals ended up having some bodily harm done because of their jokes, the silly things that they do. A lot of times, people are nothing more than distractions for one another that keep you from, once again, finding the real message, finding the message that is sandwiched or layered with another message on top of another. The creative has to do a good job in making information easy yet hard to find. God is a good God. He is a loving God. And I hope that those of you all who have taken the time out to listen, that you'll also take the time out to watch the movie. I'm not getting paid to recommend it. Matter of fact, I rarely, if ever, talk about movies by name and tell my audience to go see. But I want you to use this as an opportunity to exercise your critical thinking skills a bit. And even look beyond whatever the producer, creator, writer wanted us to see. When there's a whole team behind some people, sometimes you don't want to see whatever a person puts right in front of you. That's too easy, especially if it's an attempt to control you, to put you in your place. But let's look beyond. Let's see things the way the creator sees things. He has a way of putting those spiritual glasses on your eyes. And may you see what he wants you to see with regard to your life. May he reveal to you prophetically what is to come. May you be ready to deal with whatever challenges are ahead. I thank you as always for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. You've been listening to YouTube, NM Enterprise 7. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment. We do welcome giving, and thank you to those who have given already, and blessings to those who intend on giving. Have a great rest of your day.